Hey everybody, welcome to episode 17 of Restoration Z. The dampers are back. If you don't know why they were gone, then check out the last episode or go back to the beginning of the playlist for Restoration Z and catch up. We were basically restoring a 2007-2008 DRZ 400 SM. Anyway, the dampers are back. I now need to rebuild these. I've been waiting 2 weeks to do it, so I'm just going to get on and get it done. And yes, I was correct. The only issue was those two. So I need one damper. I then need one ring that goes around a particular way because this bumper tube goes over the top of that and sits inside it. Then over that goes a spring. And I need a fork leg. Just need to make sure the lock nut is all the way down, which it is now. Okay, then damper tube, and this isn't round, this has got a flat side to it, and basically what this is doing is it's reaching down to a valve, and the clicker on the end is turning that valve. These have no presets in them, like this, these just spin. It's done when it's in here, but that is why you need to reverse everything back to the same point on both, so it's even and correct when you put it all back on. Then you have to bring the lock nut up to it and then cinch them together down the middle. And then I want to try and start these threads off very carefully. Now there are torque settings for these, but from what I hear, tight is tight. Okay. And we just need to remove our orange tape. This is just stopping any residue that was in here getting out when I was bringing them back. So, damper, ring, bumper, spring. Make sure the lock nut's all the way seated. Adjust a rod. Remember, you've got to be very careful with these. Let it go in and let it find the valve top. It's about there. That's gone down. Always try and start threads off on something like this by hand, because then you can't really do too much damage. If you get on straight on with a socket, you're very likely to do damage on the first turn. Unfortunately, because of all the faffing around, the fork oil that Wemoto very kindly supplied got basically used and contaminated, and because I didn't want to go too heavy with it, if you remember I had two different weights, because I didn't want to go too heavy with it, I've ended up having to buy some more fork. The reason I'm using a big syringe is because I can very accurately measure out the oil. I don't think the dip tool is going to really work in this instance because of the way that these forks are. The dip tools work on open topped ones, like when you're doing the inner piece of this, but cartridge forks you can't really do that, so you just have to measure. It needs to be 350 mils per tube, but the more important thing is that it's even. So yeah, anyway, let's get on and fill these up. It has taken 2 weeks to get to this point. Yes! What I need to do is readjust the adjustments. So stock is 17 from hard, so one, two, three, four. There's actual positive clicks you can feel there, so you can count. You might be able to hear it, I don't know. 13. Okay, I've got a little gadget for these. Basically, on the top of the tubes, you have these little screws. Focus. This screw. This is an air bleed hole because obviously as atmospheric pressure changes, the pressure in the forks change. So you have to lift them till they're completely uncompressed, undo these screws, you'll hear a suck or a little blow of air, and they'll be equalised, and then you screw it back in. Which is obviously a little bit annoying when you want to just do it on the fly and you don't have a screwdriver with you. Well, these are little screw-in press valves. So that screws in the original hole, and then you press this to release the pressure. Okay, so if I press this down a little bit and press the button, okay, now you should hear it suck in. Fitting these now before I rebuild the bike, is that sensible? Probably not. I'll be careful. In the time I was waiting for the suspension, I tried to do all the jobs with the engine that I could. I actually still need to just soak these clutch plates tonight and pop those in tomorrow. I wanted to do the valve check on this, not because it needed doing, but just because I felt like doing it because the engine was out. Well, this here, the porthole that you need to get off, is well, it's about 10.5 mil. Now I thought it was some imperial metric thing, and I realised no, because 9.5 mil is what's that, 3/8 of an inch. You don't, if you get something that feels slightly too small for a 10 mil, it's going to be 3/8 of an inch. But above that, it's going to be something else. So anyway, I tried to get an 11 mil Allen and grind it down to get it the right size. I messed that one up. So then I got a 10 mil spanner and got aluminium tape all over it and stuff like that, and got a really nice fit in here. And then I tried to undo it, and all it wanted to do was flange the edges of lift up. I mean, this is not me breaking the Allen hole. It was so hard, it just wanted to move the metal rather than unscrew this. So I'm not doing the valve checks. This engine's just going to go back in because it was okay before. I will get a valve check done at some point, and I'll also get the person who put that on to take it off. So I'm going to put those in a little bag with some oil, let those soak. Yeah, so catch me in the morning. Okay, it's actually been 2 days because some other stuff came up, but I basically put some oil in this bag with the plates, and just every few hours when I came out here, moved it around a bit, and these are all properly soaked now. So we can take this clutch out and have a look at it. The reason I'm changing the clutch plates is just that the clutch on this bike, when it was cold, if you really gunned it, would slip very slightly for the first mile or so, and then it would be okay. But as I have the opportunity to just change the clutch, I thought I'd, change it and see if it improves it. It'll be interesting to know what these clutch plates actually look like, as to whether they're worn out or what. Just before I make any mistakes with this, I've just marked the bolts and the case, because these are all different lengths, you can see, and you don't want to get these messed up. Generally, in my experience with bikes, clutches are actually very easy to do because they're designed to be easy to get to. Like this, there's an O-ring rather than a gasket. It's accessible to the side of the bike. You can do this with the bike altogether, though you will want to drain the oil first or put it on its side. Just the first one. There we go. That's all looking good. These are worn, but there is a little bit of meat left on them. Okay, switch to alternate reality. I took this apart and went, hang on a minute, these plates look quite big. And I noticed that the ones I've been sent, we can see one of them, one of them is nice and big, and that's about the size we need. The rest of them are way too small. Never known Wiimoto to make a mix-up. It can happen. This was during the whole Corona thing, so, balls get dropped occasionally. I'm sure if I contacted them, I could get a clutch kit quite quickly, but even if I get that tomorrow, I've still got to soak 24 hours. That's 2 days' time. It's just delaying. As I say, this doesn't actually look too bad, and I think I found why these were slipping. I've checked the thickness of the actual plates themselves, and they're in spec. Everything about these is fine. They're perfectly in spec to continue using. So why was it slipping? Well, it did sit for a long time between uses because, with this bike I used it a bit and then left it for a while, then used it for a bit and left it a while. I think that didn't help. But also, I noticed that, see the colour difference? That's not particularly good. As I say, thickness on these is absolutely fine still, and there is a way of getting a bit more life out of a set of steels by sanding them, basically. So that is what I'm going to do, put it back together, see how it goes. If it goes fine for a while, great, and then I'll replace everything when I go to replace the clutch next time. If it doesn't solve the problem, well then I'm going to have to do it anyway, but I can do it when it's on the bike. Point is, I want to get this bike back together, and this is literally the hinge pin that is stopping me moving forwards. So, What I need to do is take out these plates. Okay, it's getting a bit deeper now. You'll notice that one of these is a bit different. That's because this one has got this anti-vibration ring, spring ring in it. But I've just noticed that it's bitten, focus, a big groove in this plate. I don't know if that's normal or not. Okay, the answer has been found. This isn't a flat washer. This thing is basically concaved inwards all the way around, so the outer edge is higher than the inner edge. And that is supposed to be upwards. So it was correct. I'm not sure if it's supposed to leave a groove quite that deep in it, but it's been okay up until now, apparently. Okay, so I've got a nice flat surface with a piece of 240 grits wet and dry paper on it, and now what I need to do is put some hash marks in these. I'm not talking to take any like huge amounts of material off, just get some scratches in the surface and take a bit of the glazing off. I've seen suggestions of using even lower grit than this, like down to like 120 and stuff, and that just seems a little bit harsh. So I'm going to just go with this. So there's a side before, and there's a side with a quick going over, and you should be able to see some hatch marks appearing. You don't want, this is to my understanding, you don't want circular swirls, you know, like if you were to spin it, because then that's going to give grooves for everything to slip through, and that's going to cause you more problems. The reason why you hash is because they're going opposite directions all round. So when the material of the other plate pushes into it, it doesn't want to spin on it, it grips. That's my understanding anyway. Right, well I've got 7 of these to do, so that's 14 sides. So I'm going to get a chair, put some music on. I'm going to turn the camera off because there's no point recording any of this, and just get on and get those done. Okay, as you've seen, been through, sanded them, put it all back together. It should hopefully be fine. I won't really know until we try it, but I think it'll be fine. I've now seen that they were slightly glazed and that, well, quite badly glazed, so that now explains why there could have been that bit of slipping, and hopefully that will have accounted for it. Clean this off with some brake cleaner because I've got, actually I need some gloves because my hand's got some oil on them still. I have got some case savers. These are not particularly expensive ones, just pressed aluminium. These housings are known to be a bit brittle because, to my understanding, it's made of magnesium. And these just, well, this side just pops over there like that and just helps protect the engine. And the way you stick these down, or the way that's been suggested to me, and I've seen people do in the past, is with RVT, in other words, liquid sealant gasket. Because you can put a nice squidge on here that gives you a bit of height, and you can go, get it squidged down, leave it for an hour, and that will be dry. Well, it'll be dry to move, not cured, not for 24 hours. And then if you ever need to get it off, well, it's a matter of prying it, basically. But it means that if the engine ever takes a good whack, this should take some of it up. Now I'm noticing that it's sitting on this inner edge here. So I think all I can do is fill like a line of RVT around here. Not too far to the edge so it doesn't squish over because the cleanup would be a pain. Some in the middle, and then just squidge it down in about the right place and leave a weight on it and come back in an hour and do the other side. Now this side is more cosmetic, so I don't think these ones get broken very easily, as in because nothing tends to hit this unless you drop it on that side and there's a rock and blah blah. However, on the other side, the gear shifter is known for ramming into the engine and causing it to crack on the plate on the other side. There is also a sharp edge on the inside of the DRZ gear shifter, like a thin edge, which means you get all that pressure on one thin line and it kind of starts to crack. A lot of people, as I have as well, you take the gear shift lever and you just use sandpaper or file, or I actually used a bench sander, just to round off that sharp line, and it means that you don't get the really sharp whack into the case. But we're putting case savers on anyway. But yeah, just a thing, just a thing. that didn't fit quite as well as I thought it was going to, but then I thought about it, it's probably designed in a way like that, so you've got enough RVT in there that it's going to take some of the impact out, because if it was actually touching, it might not. But, or maybe it's just because they were cheap and they didn't fit quite right. Right, I'm going to leave that for a bit, and then I'll come and stick the other one on, and then the engine will be all ready to go back in the frame. Okay, well, it's late o'clock and I'm just finishing editing this episode and realised, actually, this is a good point to end this episode, because in the next one, that's when we start getting the frame and the engine and the swing arm and all of that back together to get a rolling chassis. I really cannot wait, because obviously that's the point the bike starts going back together. That's the point that once that's together, it's a lot easier for everything else to go on. It's going to just be really pleasant from that point onwards, and I've got lots of new things to put on there. I'm actually still waiting on some parts. A headlight from America, a Righteous stunt clutch, that's coming from America. Hazeman Motorcycles has now got all of my plastics from Suzuki, which is absolutely amazing. I've got to go and get those. The even better news is that the tank shrouds come with the stickers, which means I don't need to get a customs graphics kit. It's just going to fit in perfectly. And I actually quite like the shroud graphics. As you can see, as I've been scrolling through the thumbnails, it's taken 17 episodes to get this point. It's been a lot of work, a lot of learning. I've gone from being somewhat apprehensive about taking this bike apart this far to excited to do it again. Maybe on something similar and simple, but we'll see in the future maybe. But yes, this is definitely the turning point and it should be marked. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all the people that have helped support this build through watching the videos, liking them, becoming a subscriber of the channel, joining the Patreon, already being a member of Patreon, supporting it through PayPal. There's been some very kind donations recently. I haven't emailed them specifically because in the past when I've done that I don't get a reply, and I sometimes wonder whether people don't want to be contacted. But yeah, just to say, to those people, I know you're watching, I thank you so much. So, if you enjoyed this video and you're enjoying the series, remember to hit that like button. And in the next episode, as I say, engine's going back in the frame. And I've got a bit of a crafty trick as to how I'm going to do that and not damage the paint, hopefully. Catch you in that one. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to see future videos. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please consider joining my Patreon to get early access to videos, questions answered in the monthly Q&A, your name on screen, and some exclusive content, all for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the links in the description to my merch and other ways to directly support the channel. Thanks for watching.